Y'all, I think I'm gonna have to change the entire middle section of my book.
Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Just Another Struggling Writer, the beleaguered author's one-stop shop for commiseration and hopefully inspiration. My name is Carrie Scher, and I am just another struggling writer. Well, today is the start of another writing vlog, and I can hear it now. You're saying, Carrie, didn't you just finish the first draft of Seekers of Empyrean like 16 hours ago? And yes, I did. Thank you for mentioning it. I never tire of hearing it. But alas, time is a currency and it waits for no one. And as such, I am using the next 7 days of my well-earned vacation to work. What am I working on, you might ask? Well, what else but a revision plan? Because you see, I have big plans for draft 2, mostly with the speed in which I hope it will be completed. And therefore, I really can't afford to spend my entire vacation doing nothing writing wise. So I've got some stuff I'd like to at least start on while I'm here just laying around the house. But lest you think I'm gonna overwork myself or burn myself out from this project, I'm gonna be starting slow with what I like to call a post-mortem outline. And basically what that means is I'm going to be going back through the draft and rereading it and taking notes on each specific scene using one of my newly created scene revision worksheets. And here it is. Essentially what this does is asks me a couple of questions. It asks where in the draft the scene falls, what chapter it's in, whatnot, how many words I estimated it to be before I wrote it, and how many words it ended up being at the end. Then I ask myself, why is the scene important? What plot lines are featured in it, and what character arcs appear? Then I have a space to talk about how the scene progressed, and then at the bottom, another section to make notes on how I can make the scene better. And my goal for this week originally was to get through the entire draft doing this. And I counted, there are like something like 56 scenes, which would mean doing 8 scenes a day. And before I started, that seemed super reasonable, but that is not the case. In fact, I was just on the live stream earlier today that Natalie hosted on her channel, and it was 2 40-minute sprints, and I was able to get through 2.5 scenes. Yikes. So obviously this is going to take a lot more time than I would like. And while yes, I could still feasibly stick to my plan to do this post-mortem outline while I'm on vacation, I get the sense that that probably wouldn't be a good idea. This is supposed to be an actual vacation for me, a time to rest and relax and get some distance from my obligations and my work. And while I do want to utilize this time where I'm not focused so much on work to be productive and get some stuff done, I also know better than to basically fill up my days with 40 hours of work anyway. So what I'm going to do is just work on it as I feel like it throughout the week, maybe try and get half done and then focus on finishing it next week. I'm also going to be taking some notes in my world building and planning notebook just on some general revising ideas that I have had. Early on in the drafting process, I realized I wanted to lean into the monster of the week inspiration and really think about those style TV shows and how they are structured and take some of the lessons from them and apply them here. Specifically, I want to name all my chapters. That's something I've never done, but I would love to give them like episode titles, and then also just some of the way that the reveals and drops come across. I would really like to kind of, like I said, lean into that inspiration. I also have identified some plot arcs and some character arcs that I would like to coax more to the front. And throughout the drafting process, I have also realized that I think I probably have too many story arc and plot arc ideas, and that some of them might need to be pared back. So I need to do a little bit of that brainstorming as well. So while I'm not going to be doing a 40-hour work week's worth of work, Lord, I don't plan to be idle either. Like I said, I have already started the post-mortem outline. I've done 2.5 scenes. I would like to get at least the rest of this third scene done. And then I'm going to take a break and eat some dinner and watch some YouTube and read a book. So that's my plan, and that's kind of my update. I'll try and vlog as much of the process as possible, but honestly, I'm just sitting around my house reading and writing and watching YouTube. So sorry if that vlog turns out to not be very interesting. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I have been sitting here for the last day and a half doing nothing but reading. And honestly, I'm fine with that. I'm fine with taking a short break from endlessly soaking my brain in Seekers of Empyrean. But as I was sitting here reading one of my favorite books from last year, rereading it, by the way, so that I can read the sequel next, I don't know why I started thinking about needing comps for my book. Oh, that's right. Because I noticed that a book I feel might be comparable, even though it's super old, was available at the library, so I got it. And I was thinking about it. And then I was thinking about I need other comps that are recent. And then I was thinking I need more urban fantasies. And then I started thinking about Mick, who is also writing an urban fantasy, and how she had changed her book title from House of Stone to House of Bones. And then that made me think of Ande, who is writing House of Aphtos. And I was just thinking about titles. And Seekers of Empyrean has always been a placeholder title. I've actually kind of envisioned it as the series title, not the book title. Coming up with a book title has been kind of on my to-do list. It's just, I've been putting it off because Seekers of Empyrean does for right now while I, draft. But as I was going along on this train of thought, I think I arrived at a title. I'm going to think about it and I'll let you know, but I think I have a title. Hey y'all, just checking in with a brief writing update because it is actually now Friday afternoon and I have not done any of my revision plan that I had said that I was going to this week since Monday. And honestly, I'm fine with that. This was my vacation week, of course, and I realized that after working so hard last weekend to finish the draft, I really, really needed a break. I didn't want to work the whole week and then go back to my actual day job. So I've been relaxing and reading books and sleeping and hanging out and watching YouTube and really just kind of enjoying my time. But last night I edited the final first draft vlog and it really made me remember all of my excitement that I was feeling and energy and passion and desire to get back into it and start revising. And then I sat down and was watching some YouTube and that really motivated me again. So I've just finished up doing some more of my post-mortem scene breakdowns. I've now completed the first 4 chapters and I just got started on chapter 5, but I think I'm going to take a little break because the next 4 chapters are very dense, but I've got some really good ideas on how to give my main character an arc. I said in the last video that she didn't really have one. It was kind of all over the place and nothing really intentional. And now I'm kind of seeing a good starting point and a good way to, thread it throughout the narrative. My only fear is that I'm going to make this book longer in the second draft instead of shorter. Now, that's not entirely a surprise. I do tend to write very thin in my first drafts. The issue is that my thin draft overblew my original 90,000 word goal. And I would like, what was that? I would like to keep it under 110 for sure. And I'm already at 106. That's just my only fear is that the scenes that I thought I was gonna cut, instead of cutting them, my thoughts are I shouldn't cut them completely. I should actually turn them into character moments to show where Arceli, my main character, is at prior to arriving at the secret government agency, where she will go through most of the plot, but also go through most of her character development. In my writing my opening snapshots tend to be like very, very short. I like to get to the inciting incident almost immediately. And in this case, the opening snapshot is Arceli is being booked into jail. And in the very next chapter, these agents arrive and say, hey, we want you, Uncle Sam style. And so that's the inciting incident. And so there is very, very little time to really see where Arceli is at. Obviously, I do what I can in that opening chapter to kind of say, hey, she's being booked into jail for this reason, and these are the circumstances that led her here, and this is a little bit about her history. But between her recruitment at the jail and when she actually arrives there's a couple of chapters where it more firmly establishes what led her to this point, what her life has been like, and why she might have kind of a suspicious feeling and relationship to this secret government agency that's just recruited her. So like I said, instead of winnowing things down here in this opening sequence, I'm actually like, my notes are like, beef this up, give her more interiority, kind of talk more about her history. And so I think the first 20% will like, which is what the typical like first act usually is, even in both the 3-act and the 6-act structure, I think I'm still right on target for that. It just happens a little bit out of sequence because the inciting incident arrives so quickly. Now, if you know of any like writing wisdom that says, hey, it's okay to do it this way, let me know, because I am feeling really nervous about that. But I have always been that way. My inciting incidents are usually within the first 2 scenes. I get right to the point and then kind of fill in the reader like, hey, this is why this is going on. Not in retrospective, but like in subsequent chapters as the main character is dealing with the inciting incident. Does that make sense? I've always been that way. Pretty much all of my stories start like that. There's a very, very brief scene of like, this is what's happening in this moment, and then boom, inciting incident. So I can't remember why I went on that. So anyway, so like I'm just starting to feel a little nervous that I'm going to overshoot my word count goal again when I am supposed to be starting to winnow things down. But we'll see. This is just the post-mortem. I am just breaking down each scene, what happens in it, and then taking some notes on how the scenes can be improved and whether or not I should keep or cut them, and just leaving myself ideas. I'm sure I talked about this in the last clip, but since it's been 5 days, I can't remember. But my plan after the post-mortem is to then get back into my like notebook where I have all my ideas and start writing down all of the character arcs, all of the plot or subplots, all of the ingredients that aren't like the A plot, and write those down and kind of decide which ones are important. The issue with like coming up with a 9-book series is you could just have so many ideas and so many things that you want to seed and so much lore that you want to include. And for a pilot book, which given its Monster of the Week inspiration is kind of what I'm thinking this as, this is the pilot, you just can't put everything into it. It'll just feel too chaotic and dense. And so I do need to go in and kind of decide what is important, what can be mentioned near the end once or twice to give the reader something to think about for subsequent books, and what can be trimmed entirely, and what is really the meat of this book. I know I have mentioned in previous like world building episodes for this book that I just forgot what I was saying. Oh, that's what it was. That each mini arc of 3 is supposed to feel like a season, and there is a overarching big threat. So if you think of like a season of Supernatural, like one season it's the yellow-eyed demon, right? That's the big bad. And then the next season it's Lilith or whatever. And then the next season it's something else. That's kind of what I'm going for, where it just keeps growing in scale per 3-book arc. And so each book is like a miniature encapsulation of that larger arc. Obviously in this first one, there's so much to establish, and I want to balance letting the reader know that there's so much more to explore without being overwhelming. Anyway, that's a very long-winded way to say that I'm feeling a little bit nervous that I'm getting too ambitious. But again, this is just my post-draft breakdown. After I'm done with figuring out which arcs and which subplots I want to include, then I will go in and do a more detailed outline similar to the outline I did before I started the draft, where I'm going to be thinking really seriously about which scenes and how they're going to flow again, and then folding in the subplots and character arcs into each one and being really intentional. I think I'm actually going to modify my scene outline worksheet to be more like my post-mortem worksheet, where it is less focused on the physical details of the scene. In the previous version, there's like, where does it take place, and is there anything important, any important like objects or things that the character interacts with. I found throughout the outlining process that was less useful, whereas mentioning which character arcs and which subplots are relevant to the scene is more useful. So I'll probably modify that going forward. I'm starting to feel pretty sure that June 22nd is not looking good for a start of the second draft, but we'll see. Once I get back to work, I think, and I'm not like at home with all the distractions and I'm not on in vacation mode, it'll be easy to turn on, okay, I'm gonna break down 8 of these scenes a day. If I could finish Act 1, which would be the big chapters I mentioned, the next 4 big chapters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 scenes, then I'll feel good about that for today. But I'm gonna take a break right now. I'm gonna do a little reading and relaxing. Oh, that's right. I completely forgot that in my previous clip I mentioned that I came up with a title. I'm not gonna talk about it just yet, but I feel really sure that that's how I'm gonna go. I am very big on themed names for anything. Everything has to be a theme in any of my projects. And so the theme for the titles of the books in this series, I kind of want to be fragments of like common sayings or parables or turns of phrase or morals that you hear, like jack of all trades, master of none kind of thing. The only thing is what happened as soon as I had that idea and I came up with the particular one I want to use for this book, I forgot every common phrase and saying and, well-known term that I ever learned. And so I would love it if you would, in the comments, leave me some of your favorites of those kinds of phrases. Blood is thicker than water, anything that you can think of that is a turn of phrase or an old saying or something like that, or a bit of advice or common wisdom or anything like that. Leave it in the comments, because that's how I'm going to name the books of this series. Like I said, I've already got the first one. I might have one for number 2, and then I have an idea for one for way later in the series, probably like book 5 or 6. And yes, I've thought that far ahead. Thank you very much. But anyway, so I'll do a full title reveal at some point. It is a relief to finally give this book a title, because I've always known that Seekers of Empyrean was the series name, not the book title name. And so I've often struggled with titles. I don't think I have a single project where the title is really firmly in mind, which isn't really a problem, because 9 times out of 10 when you're traditionally published, that changes anyway. But I tend to struggle unless I have something to call it. And in this case, I latched onto Seekers of Empyrean, but I always knew that was going to be the title, the series name. So a relief to finally have a single book title. And yeah, like I said, leave your favorite phrases and terms and parables down below, and I will take stock of my favorites and use them for future books. So anyway, all that to say, I'm gonna take a break, I'm gonna do some reading, and then I will probably get back over here and do some more of my scene breakdown. Hey y'all, just checking in. It is now Saturday morning, and last night I did not get the full 4 chapters done that I was talking about. I think I did 1.5, but like one of those scenes was like 4,000 words, so that was pretty dense. And then like I saw that another one coming up was also 4,000 words, and I was like, I just don't have it in me for today. Fortunately, there are a couple of productivity live streams today that I'm going to be attending. One is about to start here in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to focus on trying to get through the rest of Act 1 for sure. My kids are back now. It is the weekend before I have to go back to work, so it is starting to feel a little bit like real life is coming back into the picture. I've definitely got some homework that I've been avoiding. I'm still going to continue with my focus of doing this post-mortem outline, and we'll just go from there. So I've got a stream coming up, and we will just see how much we can get done in the live stream.
think I'm gonna have to change the entire middle section of my book. It's not good right now. And I think I have a way to make it more interesting and better, but it's completely different. Like, I'm gonna have to change, like, the entire, like, middle, like, 40%. I think it's the right choice to make the book better, but
Y'all, I have been spiraling, okay? I was just laying down trying to take a nap, and I got a bolt from the blue, and not an entirely welcome one, but one that I think is for the best. And that is, I need to completely rewrite like the middle, like 40% of my book. And to be honest, I think I've kind of quietly always known that. When I was in the outlining phase of draft 1, I really struggled with this middle part because I just didn't feel like I had enough plot. And I ended up moving the original midpoint event closer to the end of Act 2 because I didn't feel like I had enough between that event, which is very much like is like a snowball effect, and like the Dark Night of the Soul. So I needed it to be closer to the end. But that meant that from like the 20% mark to like the 60% mark, not a lot happens. I filled it in with some like personal character arcs and subplots and stuff. And I always knew that that needed to be rewritten because I wanted those subplots to be more integrated and to have play a larger role in the whole book, not just for this one character. And so I was laying in bed, and for the last 2 days, I've been trying to work out like how I'm going to drop each lore drop and each like revelation in what sequence so that it all flows together and it all makes sense, so that at the end, Arceli isn't like bombarded by all of these revelations that she's just, anyway. So I've been working through that mentally and kind of taking notes on when I'm going to be doing these drops and in what way. And as I was doing that, I came up to a point where I was like, this makes no sense. This particular lore drop and this particular reveal makes no sense. It happens at the end and it's a complete revelation to Arceli. It like completely blows her mind, and it doesn't make sense that it would take her that long to get that information. She would have figured it out or pressed for the information earlier. She wouldn't have just ignored it all the way up to the big reveal at the end. So I was working through like, okay, how am I going to make this make sense? How am I going to make this character arc? I think I talked about it a little bit in the outlining phase, but there's like a mystery surrounding her mother. So I was working through that and trying to figure out how am I going to make this all make sense throughout the course of the whole book. I kind of figured out pieces of it, and then I realized it doesn't make sense. And then that made me realize like the other major revelation of like the 60% mark that kind of triggers her Dark Night of the Soul after the big fight scene, that also doesn't make sense. For her to not have pressed to have that information, for her to not have figured it out, or for, just within the context. And that made me realize that if I'm gonna do the ending like 40% the way that it is currently as it stands, and I do think that by and large it should stay the same as it is in draft 1, then everything that precedes it, not everything, but like that middle 40% needs to be completely rewritten. Not just to make the revelations make sense, but also just to make it more interesting. So that is what I've been doing for the last like hour, and then I had to get up because I have to go pick up my groceries, which is where I'm at now. I've been taking some notes. I've been writing down my ideas, and I think I've got most of it. Of that 40%, I've got almost all of it figured out. I just have one last kind of question. I think I've got an answer, a way to do it, but it's not my favorite. I think I need something a little bit stronger. But anyway, the point is most of that 40% I figured out now. And it's a lot more action-packed, and it has like appropriate revelations, and there's an excuse for like Arceli to be distracted from thinking through these things on her own and like pressing for more details because she's got other plot stuff to deal with. And so that makes sense why she wouldn't press, and so the big revelation at the end can still be a revelation to her. So a lot of draft 2 is going to be a complete rewrite, going to be like completely new scenes. But honestly, like, I feel so much better about this new sequence of events. I feel so much better. It is, like I said, it's got more action. It kind of amps up the drama with the antagonist. It explains like what Arceli is doing and like in her training, and that she's not just sitting around idle. It makes her less of a doofus. I mentioned in my last vlog that like she was kind of like intentionally ignoring information that was being given to her, and while I thought it was funny, I also like didn't love how helpless it made her in the narrative either, and how useless it kind of made her. So in this way, she is still like experiencing that, not having all the information, but it's not from a lack of disinterest, or it's not from disinterest or from a lack of like connection or wanting to. It is purely because there's just too much happening that she can't think about it all at once, and therefore she's distracted. Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. The other thing I'm thinking of as I have been working through this post-mortem outline is that draft 2 is probably going to be much longer than draft 1. I'm not super like pressed about that. I've always known that my first drafts are thin, and I did a really good job, I think, of description in draft 1. In the past, my drafts were like so thin because I was not doing any setting or any description of people, places, or things, or at all. I was literally, it was just a collection of scenes and like conversations and moments rather than like actually happening in a world. So I feel like I did a lot better this time. Just the way I'm working through it and how I'm like parsing which lore drops and which revelations are going to happen when. I just feel like it's going to be longer. I won't know until I get into the second draft outline, but I would anticipate maybe like an additional 20,000 words, maybe even more, especially with all of the new plot points I am introducing for this middle 40%. 2 major moments are basically staying the same, but other than that, there's just more that's going to happen. I am cutting some stuff to make room for it, so there is that. One big scene is being completely cut and reworked into like another scene. Anyway, so it's not like all addition, there is some subtraction, but I do think the net result will be more words, probably a lot more. But again, I'm not super worried about that because I love to cut things. Whenever I was working semi-professionally writing romance novellas, that was my favorite part of the process, was yes, I don't need this, I don't need this. So I know for a fact that when I get to the part where I need to start subtracting words, that won't be a problem. It was an interesting hour. It was about an hour, maybe just over an hour, that I was laying in bed working through this mentally and finally realizing, yes, I've got to do these rewrites. Like, it is necessary. And while the extra work is not my favorite, improving the work is my favorite. I'm so excited. I'm excited to have an answer. If you've been with me since the beginning and watching all of these vlogs, you can go back and watch some of those outlining vlogs where I talk about my struggle with filling in this middle portion of the book and not having enough plot. And the thing is, I don't know that I could have come up with these ideas without having written the first draft. Like, I think I needed to experience the first draft in detail to realize that what I had come up with wasn't entirely enough or made entirely sense. It made too much sense. Because when you're looking at an outline, you can say, yes, I've constructed this in a way that it makes sense. But until you're in it and you're drafting it and like you're getting new ideas and the scenes are pulling you in directions you didn't expect, obviously new ideas are going to come up and realizations are going to come about. And so I am so grateful to have had enough juice to finish the draft, and I am grateful now that I'm seeing ways to continue to improve the story. I'm almost ready to start drafting again. Isn't that crazy? It's crazy. I just finished a draft. I should not want to be drafting again, but I want to implement these changes. Anyway, so last night I only got to I finished the first 20%, like Act 1 of the 6-act structure and a little bit extra. And that's kind of what triggered I need to start figuring out when I'm going to do these lore drops, because the notes I was taking weren't enough. So I'm still going to finish the post-mortem outline, even knowing that a lot of the section I'm currently in is going to be cut or changed, because like I said, doing the work generates ideas in and of itself. So I'm gonna get groceries. I've got a video to edit, probably a long one, so it might take me a while. I've got some homework I need to finish. I am so over macroeconomics. My first 3 weeks of the class, I was doing really, really well. And then at the end of last week when I was leaving work and I was on vacation, I was trying to finish the draft. And then this week when I've been really checked out. It's been a struggle, and I almost failed a quiz, and I'm over it. I'm so over it. Ugh. So I have to do that. I have to film a video. So my goal is to get maybe a few more scenes done on that post-mortem, and then that'll be it for the week. So I just wanted to stop and tell you all about the kind of scary but also kind of exciting realization that I had that draft one, a significant portion of draft one is going to be rewritten, like completely from scratch. Anyway, I am going to get my groceries. I'm going to go home. I'm going to do my edits. I'm going to do my homework, and then I will check in with you guys once I've done a little bit more work on this post-mortem outline. Hey y'all, it is now Monday morning, and I am just checking in to wrap up this vlog because I did not get any more actual writing done or my post-mortem outline done. I did a tiny bit more brainstorming and took a little bit more notes on how I'm going to proceed with that 40%. Added another scene to that I think might be important. But apart from that, it was just homework and editing. That video took forever to edit, and homework and getting ready to go back to work. All in all, I think it's been not as productive as I thought when I started the week, but yesterday's ideas and revelations, very helpful, very productive, and rejuvenating in a way, because now I'm excited to get back into the draft again. A sentence I never thought I would say. With that, thank you so much for watching. I so appreciate it. If you like my content and want to support the channel, please like and subscribe, or consider leaving a comment down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, leave me a surprise face emoji for all of the surprises that I talked about in this video. In my next video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about what I learned from the first draft process. I hope you look forward to it, and I will see you then. Bye.